Important immigration news update. USCIS made a major announcement that has really excited some people while confusing others. It concerns the point at time in which someone who has been granted asylum, which we call an asylee, is eligible to apply for permanent residence. Now, the implications of this change in policy by USCIS will definitely affect people, but it's not as straightforward as it might seem. In this video, I'm going to explain to you what this new policy means for asylees who want to apply for a green card. I'll explain when you can apply and what the risks are of doing so too early. I'm Brian Manning. I used to be an asylum officer with the government, but now, as an asylum lawyer, I help immigrants all over the country secure their future in America through asylum. All right, so you may know that once you win asylum, the next step on your immigration journey is getting permanent residence. This is the step that comes just before applying to get US citizenship through naturalization. Now, one of the requirements to get permanent residence based on your status as someone who has been granted asylum concerns your physical presence in the United States. To get your green card, you have to show that you have been living in and actually physically present in the United States for at least 1 year from the date that you were granted asylum. So whether you got asylum from an immigration judge in immigration court or instead were granted asylum by an asylum office at USCIS, when it comes time to get a green card, you have to show that you've been in the United States for 365 days after the date on which you won asylum. Now, note that it does not have to be 365 consecutive days, rather just 365 cumulative days. This means that it's fine if you're outside the United States for a while. Just know that those days spent outside the United States do not count toward the 365 days of physical presence required to be eligible for your green card based on asylum. Now, here's where the USCIS announcement comes into play. In the past, you couldn't even apply for a green card as an asylee until 1 year after you had won asylum. But USCIS is now saying that you don't have to wait a year to apply. Rather, USCIS has said in its recent announcement that the only thing that matters in terms of the 1 year requirement is that you meet the physical presence requirement of 365 days at the time USCIS actually adjudicates your green card application. Do you see the distinction here? USCIS is now saying, okay, you've still got to have 365 days in the United States after having been granted asylum in order for us to be able to approve your permanent residence application. But we're not going to reject it and send it back to you if, when we receive it in the mail, we see that it's been less than a year since you got asylum. Because you see, in the past, they did this. They rejected applications filed less than 1 year after the person got asylum. But now, under this new policy, they're not going to do that. By the way, if you want to maximize your chances for asylum success or in getting your green card, then be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so that you don't miss the insights that I share on this channel. All right, so what is the import of this change? Can you now apply for a green card right after winning asylum? Well, here's the thing. If you submit the I-485, which is the form for the green card application, less than 1 year after winning asylum, it'll get denied if USCIS happens to review it and make a decision before you reach that 1 year mark. But if you apply before reaching 1 year and it takes USCIS a while to get to your application, such that they don't pick it up and examine it until after you've passed the 1 year mark, then you should be okay, because you should be able to show 1 year of physical presence after having won asylum. Kind of confusing, right? Okay, let me explain how this works. So the new rule says you can mail in your green card application whenever you want, but that USCIS can't actually approve the application if you don't have 1 year of post-asylum physical presence. So if they can't approve it before the 1 year mark, well, why would you possibly want to send your application before the 1 year mark? To get your place in line. That's why. Remember, it takes USCIS quite a while to adjudicate most applications, and this one is no different. As you'll see, if we search for the processing time for Form I-485 when it's being filed based on asylee status, well, we're looking at an average pending time of around 40 months with the Texas Service Center. And the Nebraska Service Center, which is responsible for handling applications from people in certain states, is essentially the same at about 39 months. So you're looking at well over 3 years, most likely, of wait time to have your application decided after you send it in. Now, here's the key thing to keep in mind. USCIS processes most application types on a first-come, first-served basis, and that's how it works with green card applications from asylees. If you apply on a Monday, then you've reserved your spot in line ahead of the person who applies the next day on Tuesday. USCIS will review your application before they adjudicate the application of the person who applied the day after you. Makes sense, right? Now, here's why you may want to apply for a green card before reaching the 1-year mark, because doing so will put you in that 3+ years queue in a spot more beneficial than if you had waited the full year to apply. To demonstrate, let's say you got asylum on July 1, 2022. Your 1-year date is thus July 1, 2023. And if you wait until July 1, 2023 to apply for your green card, well, you'll be in line behind everyone who applied before that date. But if you were to apply on, let's say, April 1, 2023, then you're effectively moving yourself up in the queue as compared to waiting until July 1. You're probably cutting down your wait time, bumping forward the date on which your application will be considered. Because of this, some asylees have decided to apply right away, like immediately after getting asylum. The thinking here is that, well, if it's gonna take USCIS over 3 years to consider my application, well, I'll definitely have a year of post-asylum physical presence in the United States by that time. And by applying now, I'm getting in line ahead of everyone else who applies in the coming year, which should help make my overall wait shorter. You may be asking, how will you prove in your application materials that you've been physically present for a year in the United States after winning asylum if you send this form in less than 1 year after winning asylum? Well, good question. It's true that if you apply before the 1-year mark, you can't demonstrate the necessary physical presence. There is some concern that USCIS may deny applications under this circumstance, but I think that's unlikely. I think that if they get to the person's application more than 1 year after the person was granted asylum, USCIS will likely issue a request for evidence to the person. This is the letter that says, hey, we need additional information to make a decision in your case. And in this scenario, they'd be asking for proof of 1 year of post-asylum physical presence. And if you send that in, then your green card will be approved. But I've got to tell you, I think there is some risk of having your application flat out denied if USCIS happens to get to it before you've reached the 1-year mark. There is a real chance that should they, for whatever reason, pick up and assess your application less than a year after you got asylum, they could say, well, sorry, you're not eligible, and deny it. How likely is that to happen? Well, not very, since we know that on average, it's taking over 3 years to adjudicate this type of application. But to be clear, the fact that this is the average does not mean that it takes USCIS this long to get to every application. Some are, in fact, adjudicated much more quickly. And the reasons for this are unclear, but it happens. My law firm had an asylee client whose green card application was approved just 3 months after we applied for him. Now, that's rare, but things like this do happen from time to time. So the next question is, what are the implications of having your permanent residence application denied? Like if you take a gamble and apply at, say, 6 months after winning asylum, and 3 months later, USCIS picks up your file, sees that you're at less than 1 year from your date of asylum approval, and denies your green card. Well, it's not the end of the world. You could just wait and apply again after you reach the 1-year mark. But you would lose your application fee. And how much is that exactly? Well, for this type of application, we're looking, at the time that I'm making this video, at a form fee of $1,140, plus a biometric services fee of $85 for a total of $1,225 per person. Now, that's a good chunk of money, and it's actually expected that fees will increase soon. So, in deciding whether you want to apply before reaching the 1-year mark after having won asylum, you've got to ask yourself whether you're comfortable with this financial risk. Is the risk worth possibly getting your green card several months sooner because you get in the queue earlier than if you were to wait to hit the 1-year mark? If you're comfortable with it, then I personally see no problem in applying for a green card as an asylee before you hit that 1-year post-asylum mark. If you're ready to take the next step and get individualized help with your asylum case, then call my office today. The number is 713-909-0401. And remember, we help people all over the country, so it doesn't matter where you are. Call us now to schedule an asylum strategy session so that we can help you secure your future in America through asylum. Again, I'm Brian Manning, and it's an honor to serve you in your asylum journey.